we are at Dynomite Diesel. I'm hanging out with Lenny. And as you guys probably know, I have a 2010 Ram 3500 pickup truck that is my kind of go-to do everything truck. It's my tow rig, it's my camping truck. If I have to run for coffee, like I do every day, I take that truck. But for the last about 6 or 12 months, I haven't been driving that truck very much because I just wasn't as excited about it as I used to be. And I talked to a bunch of my buddies about it who have diesels, and they were like, you need to talk to Lenny. Lenny does something with the injectors that you guys will really like. And so I got a hold of Lenny and I discussed what we could do. So this truck has 175,000 miles. And it's a truck that lives in California, so it has to pass the smog test. And I'm not interested in rolling coal. I'm not interested in a drag racing truck. I don't want twin turbos. I just want the thing reliable, but I want it to be a little bit more fun than it was.
Well, that's pretty easy though.
Yeah.
Lenny Reed, Dynomite Diesel. And ultimately when I met Fred, it was, hey, look, I do want this truck. It's got to pass smog. And I was like, perfect. We've been working on something since like 2015, we've been working on these EcoGreen injectors. And what the EcoGreen injector is it's something that's balanced within like 1.5 to 2%. It's within factory specifications, but it's on the high side of what factory specifications are. So Dodge was given the green light by the EPA to run this injector at that calibration. We've just chosen to take those calibrations and narrow down the target window to like 95 to 100% of what the target window was right from the factory, not on the lower side.
So the engine has 6 injectors.
Yep.
It's a 6-cylinder engine. And you're saying that like each injector sprays a certain amount of fuel and it doesn't spray always evenly between all 6.
Right.
Like one may be like, and you were saying what's the measurement for the fuel?
Well, we've been talking a lot about like idle flows and things like that, but basically like the factory spec gives it about an 18% window at wide open throttle.
Okay.
So, if you've got one injector operating at 18% higher than another injector, that hole's going to create more horsepower. What we've chosen to do is get those to where they're all going to contribute basically the same amount of fluid.
Okay.
So we're getting it to run at the optimum what factory wanted it to run at.
So basically when the factory builds these engines and they build these injectors, like they're trying to pump out 1 million injectors a day or whatever, 100,000.
I'm sure it's several thousand per day just to keep up, yeah.
And to do that, they need a little bit more leeway on like the performance. They're not going to be identical amount of fuel every single injector. It's going to be a little bit here. Plus over time, they probably wear out a little bit.
Over time, like your truck had 175,000 miles. The first question they had was, can we modify mine to make these things operate better? Well, initially, like, yes, we can, but with 170 some odd thousand miles on them, I don't know how long they're gonna live for. And the way that you use the truck and traveling from here to there, and you're always doing video shoots and you're always on a schedule, I didn't want to put you in a position where 10,000 miles from now, like we get these injectors balanced just perfect the day they leave my shop. But 10,000 miles from now, you're like, hey Len, my truck doesn't start. Or hey Len, now it's got a misfire. I just didn't want to go down that road. So usually if a customer's got like say less than 30,000 miles on them, we still inspect them, we still run them and test them before we modify them, but we can modify factory spec injectors as well.
Oh, so
as long as they are a low mileage truck.
So if it's a low miles, you can take the injectors and you can balance those.
Yep.
And by balance them, you mean like have them each inject practically the same amount of fuel.
Right.
And if it's a higher mile, just pull them out, put new ones in.
At this point, like we're dealing with engines. So the injector really is the heart of the engine.
Yep.
Like without that heart being correct and being proper, the engine cannot do what it's supposed to do accurately on time every time. The injector is responsible for like longevity of the piston life. So if you're over contributing or under contributing, the different balance throughout the motor, like when let's just say for instance, like your truck on our dyno would make a 250-ish, I think, to the tire, pretty close.
Yep.
And if one of those injectors is making 20% more power than one of the other injectors, the poor crankshaft, connecting rod, and piston see 20% more load to try and do what you're going to do up the hill. The sluggish feeling that you felt before was based on the fact that idle rates, they're allowed like 12.5 millimeters cubed of fluid, plus or minus about 7. So we can go from like 12, actually I lied, that's like plus or minus 5.6. So we can go from say 12 clear up to like 17 at idle, and 12 clear down to about 7 at idle. People call up and they say, hey, I've got this truck, it runs pretty good, but it's not perfect. Well, that's because of that. Like each injector is contributing a little bit differently. Compression's basically the same throughout the motor, but the fluid that it takes to make the piston get driven back down, there's just less of it there. So a lot of people will complain about the Cummins truck kind of rattling, like on the tip end, like right before boost comes on. That rattle's cleaned up 100% with your truck because of what we've done to the injector. So there's just a lot to it, but it's a pretty simple recipe, and like you say, it's DPF friendly. It's not gonna roll cold. We're not shoving the truck to the point where we're tearing up clutches and breaking parts. We're giving it basically like with the factory, if they had the time to build, slow down and build, call it 10 sets of injectors a day, this is kind of what they would do, I'm sure. So that's the whole idea behind the EcoGreen series.
The big, like for my truck, there's a big grade near my hometown in California, and like if I go to the airport and I come home and I get in the truck and I have to drive up that grade, and there's so many times where I'm driving the truck and it's like I don't have a trailer behind it. It has a camper shell. It has like some recovery bags and tools in the back that it always has. But like I'll be going up this grade and it won't pull 6th gear. Like it's a 6-speed manual, and I'm downshifting to 5th gear, and I'm like, I have this thing matted, and I feel like it's a Cummins truck. I should be blowing people's doors off just in stock form, and I was so disappointed in it. And so I brought this truck to Lenny, and we took it over to his shop, and his guy Joe did the swap on it. And all he did was clean the EGR, change the
crankcase
filter, and put in the injectors. And like, it's like driving a new truck. I don't know if I would compare it to a brand new truck, but compared to what it was, it is so much more fun to drive. It's peppier off the line, like it runs down the road, it's smooth. It's just like I want to drive the truck more. And there's other things that I need to do to this truck, like the suspension needs some tweaks and the steering needs some tweaks, but I was kind of just fed up with it to the point where I didn't even want to work on it. And after getting this one thing done, which is amazing to me that like a set of injectors would change that truck. So we went up in, I don't have the paper in front of me with the dyno numbers.
We gained about 40 horsepower overhaul.
Yeah, and like 60 foot-pounds of torque.
Yep.
Which is like, that's pretty good for a full-size truck like that. Like you would definitely feel that coming off the line.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people they've driven more than just one Dodge Cummins truck.
Right.
And they all don't run the exact same. Like we throw them on the dyno, we see 10 to 15 horsepower variations completely stock.
Yep.
And even those stock trucks, you get a guy that drives one and he's like, man, this thing's a dog. And he gets in another stock truck that makes 15 horsepower more, and he's like, wow, this thing's like way better. This is the one I want to drive.
Yep.
I chose my 2002 one day. I drove to the car lot, picked up truck, drove back down to my shop, dyno truck, took it back, picked up truck, dyno truck.
Oh, you just picked a bunch of different ones?
I picked the ones that I kind of wanted. I brought them down because I figured that was the ringer.
Yep.
And I picked the one that made 202 turbo horsepower compared to the ones that made like 198 and 199 and 200. It was pretty marginal, but still, it's the better truck.
Yeah.
Now, of course, back then, that was in 2002.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what I realize now. I didn't know about all of the different things with the injectors and the injection system and how little tiny details make the biggest differences.
Now, how does this affect like your warranty? If you have a truck that's under 30,000 miles, like if you put your injectors on, does that void all the warranty stuff, or?
I would say, so since we're taking a factory injector and we're moving it within the factory map, you're not going to have any warranty issues. Like we're definitely not going to cause a hurt piston. We're not going to cause any hurt engine parts because we're still operating within factory map.
Yep.
So that would be the Moss Magnuson or Magnuson-Moss Act.
Yep.
That protects you from anything. Like if we put a set of injectors in, are they going to blame your failed seatbelt or your radio? Obviously not.
Right. It's kind of like if you take the stock spark plugs out of your V8 gas pickup truck and you gap the spark plugs the way they should be instead of just whatever they came from,
right,
and then you put them back in, like that is kind of what you are doing to stock injectors. You're tweaking them enough to make them all run smooth, and all evenly, all 6, and then putting them right back in there. So it's kind of like, that's kind of the best metaphor, is like, it's like gapping the stock plug parts.
It's like that. The
But
difference
different.
is, it's totally different. So there's an armature that gets excited based off of what the ECM tells this injector what to do.
Okay.
And when the armature lifts, fluid starts to go from connector tube through the injector body and then out the nozzle.
Okay.
During all of that, there's several different calibrations within this injector, and those calibrations are based off of springs and then preload on springs and air gap. And then obviously the more air gap you have, the more time or the more delay there is to close the air gap. So it's taken us an honest to God 3 years of pretty diligent work on this, but we've been working on this for probably longer than 6 years off and on. Like,
Yeah.
I'd buy a stock truck, work on it for a while, get it to where we like the recipe, put them in somebody else's truck, there'd be something wrong, it wasn't perfect. Diligently, I knew that the day of like just stripping the DPF off and all that stuff was gonna come to an end at some point,
Yeah.
because these trucks are getting so bloody expensive. I mean, my latest truck was $5,000 less than my very first house. So, that also says that I'm really old, because we don't buy $100,000 houses anymore.
Right.
But trucks are too much money, and a set of injectors costs us $3,000. If I took your keys from you and gave them back to you a month later with the updates, you would think it was basically a new truck.
Yeah.
And that's 3 house payments, not all of the car payments.
Right.
So, I'm definitely liking the fact that we've kind of been ahead of the curve on this deal, because now it puts us, for guys like you that don't want to blow smoke, you're not trying to go out and break parts, you just want to get there, you're towing your Jeeps, you're doing whatever you got to do, you attack the grade, it goes up the grade.
Right.
And it's not overusing fuel, it's not killing DPF, it's not killing EGR, all those things are actually going to be enhanced, because all 6 cylinders are making the same amount of fire.
Right.
So all those things can react the same.
I wasn't looking for a race truck. I just didn't want to have to drift from the passing lane all the way to the right lane just to go up this hill. And I don't feel like I'll have to anymore. And the other thing is, like, I was kind of fed up with my truck, and it makes me go, well, do I need to go to a dealership and buy another $50,000, $60,000 truck? I mean, these 6 of these injectors is not cheap.
No.
Like, there's an investment there. But I also don't feel like I'm ready to turn in the keys on a new truck these days, because now I'm like, the thing runs good. Now I want to do the other upgrades that I have to it. And the fact that you can do this to a truck that has low miles, or you have one like mine that's got 175,000 miles on it, and you use it all the time, and it just it puts a smile back on your face to get in your truck.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really, when you're talking about like changing from the left lane all the way to the far right, there's a part of a man's soul that gets robbed every time he has to be in the right lane.
Yeah, especially when it's a Honda that's on your tail, and you're like, God, like, I should be able to just like be running right up the left lane with everybody else. And you're like,
there's a small part of me that dies every time the Subaru passes me.
yeah.
So I just, like, that's been the whole, like, because I do the same thing as you. I tow a lot. Like, bought the 2019 in May, and it's primarily a tow truck, and it's got over 25,000 miles on it.
Well, and I think the thing that, for the longest time, everybody thought it was cool to like have their truck just belch out black smoke, and it's not cool. Like it's not cool for the environment. It's not cool for like the guys at Cummins who I'm friends with. They don't want to see that. They're like, we don't want our trucks to be considered that way. Like, that just puts us on the radar for anybody that's gunning for an engine company.
Yeah.
And like, we have enough problems with we want to drive trucks with big tires, and we get harassed for that. Like, don't roll coal. And nowadays, like, this is the next era of diesel. It's like, how do we have performance without dumping a bunch of exhaust fumes into the air? Like, how do we keep all the smog stuff and make the truck still run good? And in the future, like, how is that going to change? Like, there's enough problems. There's enough people gunning for the diesel market as it is. Like, we don't need to do it to ourselves.
Absolutely. And, for guys like us that do tow stuff,
Yep.
whether it's a camp trailer or a trailer with a couple of quads or maybe a side-by-side, I own other vehicles. Like, I've got a 5.3 that's supercharged in a Yukon.
Yep.
If I try and drive that thing from here to Idaho Falls, the trip takes way longer in that vehicle, even though it makes 540 horsepower, but the thing drinks gas like it's going out of style. So I'm constantly pulling over and putting gas in it 3-4 times just to get there. I get in the diesel truck, I set the cruise and I let it eat, and I don't put fuel in it until I get to Idaho Falls.
Yep.
You save time by just being more efficient. And my truck, it's got DPF, got EGR, all the stuff still on it, and that's the way it's going to remain. But man, you're right. If we continue deleting trucks, overdoing the injector size, overdoing the tuning, underdoing the turbocharger, and all those things need to be considered. So when you buy a DPF related tune, it's not just, well, I'm going to throw a tune in it. It turns into like a whole new lesson for you, and you need to understand all of it or it's never going to work correctly.
Right.
So this is just kind of like foolproof. You throw them in, you don't have to alter anything on the truck. We've built the injector to exactly fit the truck no matter what you've done to it. Like, it will work. If you've done other stuff, these will still make more power. They'll still be more efficient. If you've just got a completely stock truck, need a set of injectors, 170,000 miles, or just tired, here's your injectors. Like, they just work.
So you have these for my truck. Average guy, hand tools, how long is it going to take him to install these?
I would say his first set, if he's really careful and he uses torque wrenches, please use torque wrenches. Probably 3 hours.
Okay.
And that's in the Cummins stuff. We offer these injectors for the Power Stroke. We offer them for the Duramax. And the hands down, the Cummins is the easiest one to get to. There's the most amount of room around it. You only have 6, not 8. So a trained shop is probably the better way to go.
Yep.
If you have a truck and you want to send the injectors in, just go to your shop of choice and let them know, hey, look, number those things 1 through 8 or 1 through 6, bag them and tag them, ship them to Dynomite. I want them to be modified. We'll inspect them. If we find any problems, we take pictures inside the injector. We look for whatever's wrong. We send that off to the shop that sent us the injectors with data showing why we can't do this, or yes, they're going to work, and here's proof that this is why. And at that point, we do our modifications, return them back to the shop. The shop will put them back in the exact same hole, and we laser etch like a Sasquatch on the side of your injectors. Yeah. We put numbers on there on the other side.
Okay.
So that way, we knew they came out of 1 through 6. They go back in 1 through 6. So if your truck has coated injectors, the coated injector will land in the exact same hole. There's 0 check engine lights and 0. There's no need for recalibration of ECU.
How long does it take if I send you my stock injectors and they're good to rebuild? How long does it usually take for turnaround?
So injector rebuilding, like if we're just going to calibrate a low mileage set, we'll have them out of here within 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
If we find that they need to be rebuilt, we turn yours into cores, and we'll turn you out a set of new stuff, basically the exact same day.
Okay.
And we offer the 6.7 Cummins in brand new part, and we offer it in a reman as well. You got the remans.
So if I get the Eco Greens, like we put in mine, do I send you mine as a core?
In your case, with 170,000 miles, that's what would have been done, yeah.
Okay. So those are your options. If you have a truck like mine, the thing's running tired, you want to do some upgrades, but you live in a state where you have to smog it, or you just don't want to do a bunch of like DPF deletes and all this stuff, which is pretty much illegal these days. Get a hold of Dynomite Diesel, talk to Lenny and his guys. They'll kind of walk you through what will work for you. I am about to leave today to drive my truck back to California. I've been driving it around for a week now with the injectors, and I really like it. Today I'm going to hook up my trailer. I'm going to put a big truck on the trailer and drive back to good old California. And along the way, I will stop and do some updates and send you guys some cell phone videos of how it went, what I think. I haven't really been doing fuel economy mileage testing. I probably should, but I just stop and fill it up and keep going because it just makes me feel.
You're gonna know.
Yeah.
Like you know where you usually stop. If you don't have to stop anymore, you'll know.
Right. So I will keep you guys posted. Thanks, Lenny.
You bet.
It's awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's one of those things that I was like, I'm not really sure. I really don't want to mess with my truck because I like it stock and reliable. But it's an upgrade that I'm glad I did.
I'm very glad you did as well.
It's a fun truck. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Sat down in the bottom